Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Slovakia for a historic two-day visit, which is also the first by an Indian Prime Minister. In fact, moments from now, Prime Minister Modi will be holding bilateral talks with Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico. Earlier, upon his arrival in the Slovakian capital, Bratislava, Prime Minister Modi was accorded a traditional welcome with bread and salt. In Slovak culture, bread and salt is a symbol of hospitality, respect and goodwill. Prime Minister Modi then witnessed a spiritual performance by the Slovakian musical group Mahadev Kirtan Project. Prime Minister Modi also received a warm welcome with a rendition of Vande Mataram by Lupneka Ensemble. The group had performed the Indian national anthem during the press visit of President Draupadi Murmu last year. Members of the Indian diaspora turned out in large numbers to welcome the Prime Minister. The state visit follows a series of high-level exchanges between the two countries. Last year, it was President Draupadi Murmu who had visited Slovakia, while Slovak President Pellegrini had visited India earlier this year for the AI Impact Summit. Prime Minister Modi's visit is expected to focus on strengthening partnerships across automobile manufacturing, railway development and economic cooperation. The Slovakia visit is also the second leg of Prime Minister's Europe tour. Earlier, he'd concluded his engagements in France, where he had held bilateral talks with French President Emmanuel Macron. In fact, according to an official release, the two leaders discussed ways to enhance cooperation in civil nuclear energy, human space flight, SME and aviation as well as railway sectors. An agreement has also been reached to establish a center of excellence in aeronautics in Kanpur. Prime Minister Modi also invited French universities to open campuses in India under the new education policy. Following his engagements in Slovakia, Prime Minister Modi will be heading to France again, and that is to attend the G7 summit in Evian on 16th and 17th of June. During this summit, Prime Minister Modi is likely to meet President Trump on the sidelines and exchange views with other G7 leaders as well. And joining us live on the broadcast is WION's Assistant Editor for Foreign Affairs, Siddhant Sibal. He's joining us live on the broadcast from Evian, Lebanon. Siddhant, of course, a lot to look forward to. But for now, the focus is on that bilateral talks with the Slovakian Prime Minister. Talk to us about the specific issues that will be taken up in this bilateral, and then we will also discuss the focus that is going to be on the G7 summit.
Well, this is the first visit of Indian Prime Minister to Slovakia, so expect a lot of outcomes, particularly when it comes to mobility and defense. There are understandings and agreements expected in these domain. Of course, it's a day-long visit with focus also on how both sides can build on the relationship that has seen high-level engagements. The Indian President was in Slovakia last year. The Slovakian leadership was in India this year for the AI Summit in February. And now the Indian Prime Minister in Slovakia. Clearly a strong message of engagement, but also India's strong message of engagement with Central European countries at a time when India is upping its relationship with almost all parts of Europe. In fact, the Indian Prime Minister is on a very long tour of France. He comes back to France again. He was in Netherlands, Sweden, Norway, Italy last month. That means the northern and the southern part of Europe. So a big focus remains also on trade, and Slovakia has extended its support for the India-EU trade deal.
Sadan, coming to the G7 summit, of course, talk to us about what is there specifically to look out for and not to miss out on the expected bilateral of Prime Minister Modi with President Trump.
Well, the G7 summit, as always, will have big ticket understandings and announcement. But this year's G7 summit happening in the backdrop of the conflict in West Asia, and of course the announcement on the understanding between US and Iran on a possible peace deal, which of course have other nuances as well, including of course after the signing of the MOU on Friday in Geneva, there will be announcements and engagements further as well, because there's a 60-day period. But for India, a lot of things on the table. One, of course, is bringing the voice of the global south, given the fact that the conflict in Europe and West Asia has majorly impacted the global south, and India is no different. The inflationary challenges, the war inflation is something that's pinching everyone. So India is going to talk about that. But of course, as you have already pointed out, the big bilateral with the US president is much talked about. This is the first meeting between the two leaders since February, and comes at a time of mounting anger against the United States after the killing of 3 Indian sailors on the coast of Oman.
All right, Sadan, thank you for the moment. We will, of course, keep coming back to you through the day as and when more developments trickle in.